Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
I am Jakob Stjernholm.
And I'm Andreas.
And we are the owners of Whisky Distillery with our family. I'm the master distiller and working a lot with the whiskey. And Andreas, you're the maltster. Apart from...
and the marketeer.
And the marketeer. Apart from being part of both deciding what are the whiskies we're bottling and doing something like we're doing tonight.
Tonight we're hosting our third international online tasting.
Yeah.
And our 9th online tasting.
Yeah, that's true. And it's such a pleasure to see so many of you guys out there. I think there's more than 200 devices online right now. So that's amazing. Thank you so much. And just to tell you why we are here, that we had this idea some years ago to do an online tasting like that and package a few whiskeys so everyone can sit in their home in comfort and they have 7 different rams and enjoy them all without having to care about driving home. And it's a way to connect across distances for everyone who's been here over the years or met us out, at a festival or fair or somehow found out who we are. So we'll try to explain why we're making whiskey and where we come from with this beautiful lineup of 7 different whiskeys tonight.
Exactly. So for all the Danes who joined, who are confused of us speaking English, for normalt så snakker de jo dansk. Tonight we have visitors from Germany, Holland, Belgium. We even saw Ireland here, Sweden, Norway will be joining in. So we will be speaking English tonight.
Definitely. And I think even though we are quite a small, I would say, and humble distillery, farm distillery here at the west coast of Jylland in Denmark, what we are trying to do is doing everything single estate. This place we're in is the old horse stables. That is now our tasting room at the distillery. And it's the heart of our farm, our family farm. We have been farming for 8 generations now. So the reason why we are here is that, and this is where we build all our whiskies from. Farming our own grains, malting them in our malt house, brewing, distilling, and maturing it in our own cask warehouse, of course, and bottling just on the other side of this room. So everything happens here. And from that core, this is how we try to create something that really has a sense of place of where we are. And that's what tonight is going to be all about. We're going to focus on new additions of our core range. It hasn't been more than 1 year since we launched those. The international launch of our whiskies, basically, after 15 years of whiskey making, since we started in 2010. There's going to be new limited editions, both for tonight, but also the caramel malt that we launched just a month ago now. So a very new release. Even cask samples from the warehouse of something happening. So we'll explain all of this. And we're going to focus, I think, tonight on doing our distillery tour virtually. And we're going to talk about Beachwood smoke, Andreas. That's going to be you. And we'll talk about warehouse management as well. Probably a little bit both of us. And I think we're going to share some information of our upcoming festival later in June. And also the new setup of cask shares and private casks. So we're going to run through a lot of things tonight.
But most importantly, we're going to taste 7 different whiskeys.
Yeah, exactly.
That we've really been looking forward to.
Yes.
Before we get started, I have a tradition of just showing you guys around our room, just to see where we are and who's in the room, just to get you a bit closer. You're far away, many of you, but we want to get you inside here. So I'll just switch to the mobile camera. This is it.
Yeah.
Yep, here we are. And here is Jakob sitting here. It's a terrible light in here, but that's how it goes when you want to make television. And then over here's technical team. So this is Matthias. Normally Matthias is at the still. He's the still man of the moment, the brewer and the whiskey maker. But right now he's the SoMe manager. So whenever you're doing comments, Matthias will be handling those. And over here's Ellen, my beautiful wife, and technical button pusher tonight. So she's doing making sure that the sound is okay and the video is as it should be. And this is the room. That's it. Okay, Jacob,
Yeah.
are you ready?
Sure.
Good.
Let's move on. Yeah. That's amazing. And I think some things are happening tonight.
Yes.
This one first.
Tonight we're going to be talking, or be tasting 7 different whiskies. The last one is a new release. I just wanted to tease it already now. We're releasing a new whiskey tonight. Cask 277 plus 174. Very complicated name, but you'll get used to it. It'll be released on our website after the tasting tonight. It's quite limited. There's 200 bottles available. So just wanted to let you know already. Let's put it aside.
Sure.
Find it afterwards. Talking about our web shop, tonight we will be offering free shipping on all whiskey for all of our markets. So in case you taste something you like and you feel like a bottle, go on our website. Address is just below, and we will ship it free of charge to Germany, to Netherlands, France, Austria, Denmark of course, and Sweden. No freights and no extra taxes or anything. We can ship it directly to your living room in Stockholm, Cecilia. Exactly. So, I hope you all got a box like this. This is the tasting box for tonight. I'm just going to open it and go through what you hopefully have inside. This is the box. Inside there are 2 pieces of paper. One menu of tonight and a small teaser of our festival. You'll find 3 samples of malt. We'll put those aside. We need them in a moment, Jacob.
Yeah.
7 whiskies. Let's just put them up here. A pipette. We'll get back to that. And of course, a glass. As always, if you have more whiskey glasses available, we happen to have 7 each. Find them, because it's nice to be going back and forth a bit when tasting the whiskeys. One is enough as well. Get some water as well, maybe some bread or some snack for the next 2 hours.
And that's about it, I think, Andreas. I think we need to get the first whiskey in the glass, and I'm so excited about getting started now. So let's get the first whiskey up. So we'll present it like this.
Oh yeah. So this is the first sample is our core single malt. It's called Thy. That's what we call it. It's made from Odyssey barley. It's malted as a pale malt mainly, but with a tiny bit of Beachwood smoked malt in it as well. And then it's been maturing in a mixture of Oloroso, Pedro Jimenez casks, sherry casks, and bourbon casks. It's 48% ABV. And while you pour it, you need to find the malt sample as well, called pale malt.
And like Andreas said, we always call this bottle Thy, but if you find it somewhere, it's going to look a bit like this. So white label, red color, and it says single malt. So it's our base core expression whiskey, I guess. And so this is where we start, and we're going to come back to it as well a little bit later. So let's try it out and save a little bit for a later dram as well. So what we always do when we do the first dram is just to tell you very quickly how we are normally enjoying our whiskeys in the best possible way. And then we'll talk about the whiskey. So first of all, we'll nose our whiskey, we'll smell it, because the nose or the smell is a really big part of enjoying the whiskey. These glasses are very good for holding them in your hand and just warming the whiskey while you're waiting. So while you're talking or just waiting for the next thing to happen, you're gonna have a warmer whiskey that's gonna make the whiskey more soft and aromatic. So nosing is one, and you just feel how that's like. There's one trick you can do instead of closing your mouth when you're nosing. Try to open your mouth a bit and get a bit of air in your mouth while you're smelling the whiskey. That means you can actually almost taste what's in the glass before you even start drinking it. And for this one, I definitely get some like warm, a bit of dried fruits, sweetness on my tongue. So that's super, super nice. And then of course you have the flavor and the after flavor. And the flavor is always going to be a bit strong because it is alcohol, but it's going to evaporate quite quickly, and then you have all the aromatics. Probably it's going to come in a wave, so maybe sweet first, a bit more of the spice and complexity in the middle, and then some lingering after flavor. So that's basically it.
Let's see.
Cheers.
Cheers.
We really love this. I think we can't hide that fact. The whole idea behind making this whiskey is making a single malt, so basically made only from malted barley, and really keeping the flavor of the barley. So in the beginning of the palate, I definitely get the fruitiness that we got in the nose, but then with that kind of tunes off a little bit. You have this very like juicy malt character as well. A little bit of spices, like oak spices, baking spices from the cask, from these sherry casks that has been matured on. And then at the end, I feel this warmth, a little bit in my throat, we'll get back to that. And also just the sweeter end of the whiskey. So that's all something that comes out of the malts a lot, especially what's in the middle of the flavor. In the beginning, you have the Oloroso cask marmalade sweetness, and at the end, you get a bit of PX, like dark raisin sweetness there as well. It's a very nice composition, just basically around the grains. And that's the cue, I think, for opening this small bag of malts. And guys, can you show that? So it should be the one saying pale malt on it. So this is a malt. You'll see the process in just a moment. But the idea here is keeping the temperatures quite low in the malting process, so that the sugars and the enzymes we create in malting through germination is kept intact, and we get a lot of fermentable sugars that will create alcohol, but it also keeps this very like mellow, grainy, like knækbrød or biscuit or something like that flavor, like breakfast cereals maybe. When you did your chewing of this one, you just keep chewing and chewing the husks on the grain, and what you end with is this kind of dusty grain flavor. And I feel drinking this whiskey, that's really what everything else is wrapping around. It's this kind of grain, sweet, malty, a little bit dusty feeling of the grain.
Those who never did this before, tasted the malts with that ram, we're sorry, but it's a habit we got. I mean, we're spending so much time creating the grains and the malts. It just feels natural to taste it together, and we're going to do it a few times tonight.
Yeah.
I forgot to say that whenever we're tasting a whiskey, if you have any questions, any thoughts, comments, let us know in the comments section below. Whether you are on Facebook or YouTube, you can type in your comments and your questions. Let us know, and we can answer questions on the way as we go.
Sure.
Yeah.
I think what we want to do now is actually take everybody on for a tour.
Yeah. Let's do
so, that. Ellen, maybe you can put up the video we prepared with some explanations of the whole process. So please enjoy it. It's going to take about 6 minutes. So just enjoy your whiskey, have another sip, another dram. It's really going to develop by every sip you take here. And if you want to use this prepared, put in a drop of water, you can do it. It's not a necessary thing for this whiskey, but you can explore and just enjoy. So enjoy this small video. Whiskey is basically made from one single ingredient, and that's grains. Most often it would be barley, but it could be any other grain like rye, oats, wheat, or any other cereal that we can grow in our fields around the farm. At Thy Whisky Distillery, we grow all the grains we need ourselves in the fields around us. We use organic, regenerative methods to grow the grains without using any form of pesticide or artificial fertilizer. To be successful in organic farming, we will change the crops we grow in every field every year. We call this the organic crop rotation. When we harvest our grains in September and have it safely in stock in our silos, it's ready to go into the malt house for our whiskey production. I'll take you inside for a small tour. Hi, welcome to our production. This is where we do malting, mashing, fermentation and distillation for our whiskey. The first part of the process is malting, and everything starts in the steep tank, the tank behind me right here. It's basically a big bathtub where we mix water and grains until we reach around 45% moisture. At that point, we'll move it into one of our 2 malting drums. These malting drums is something we designed from scratch. This is basically a 5-ton batch system. So every time we do a batch of malt, we'll end up with around 5 tons of finished barley malt, rye malt, or whatever it is we're malting. They're designed as a drum because this means we can roll around the whole drum. That will mix up the grains, let them sit in a new position. This is very important during germination, that everything doesn't grow together as one big brick. If that happens, there's no way for us to control the process inside, and we'll lose the material that we're working on. The next part of the process is brewing. This is our mash tun. Here we'll mix around 250 kilos of malt with a little more than 1,000 liters of water. That will give us this wort with so much sugar to make it into 8 to 9% alcohol by volume beer. And that's going to ferment after we cool down the wort in one of these tanks. And I can just show you one of the tanks that's fermenting right now. This was brewed 2 days ago, and you can see it's really alive down here. The yeast that we added to the cooled down wort is now eating up all the sugars, creating alcohol. After 3 days, all sugars will be eaten up, and we have those 8-9% alcohol, but we'll actually let it stay for another couple of days inside the fermentation vessel, just to create some extra fruity flavors for our whiskey. So the final part of the process here in the distillery is distilling the finished beer into whiskey. In this system, we do just a single distillation, and that's possible because we have an extra purifier on the system. The vapors has to go up through some small pipes, and this is a water bath of hot water inside. So the surfaces of these pipes will be around 80-90 degrees now in the process. And that means that some of the vapors, like water, heavier oils, will have a chance to condense, fall back, and be pushed back into the pot. And some of the vapors, like pure alcohol, a lot of esters, phenols, all the flavorful compounds we want for our whiskey, have a good chance of passing through up to the top pipe, down to the final condenser, and that ends up as this small stream of alcohol running out in the end. After distilling 1,000 liters of wort, we'll end up with something like 120, 130 liters of finished new make that's ready to be filled on the casks. Actually, what's in this pot right now is a bit high in alcohol, so we'll water it down slightly until we reach 63.5% normally to fill on the barrels. This is our barrel warehouse. We designed this building in a way where we get the natural climate here in Denmark inside the building and around the barrels. That's quite important, we think, to get a very honest maturation process where it's the local terroir that's actually working with the barrels. We use a number of different barrels, 3 in majority. One is sherry casks from southern Spain. They've been filled with wine for 20 to 40 years, so we get a lot of fruity character from them. There's bourbon barrels from the US. It's been used once for American bourbon whiskey. That gives us a lot of vanilla, honey-like sweet flavors. And there's new oak casks for our Spelt rye whiskey. It works really well with the peppery, spicy new make from rye. And those give us a lot of tannins, a lot of spicy, oaky character.
but also a lot of sweetness for the Spelt rye whiskey. And there's a lot of other experiments here as well. Like every single cask has a unique history, and we'll take samples now and then from all casks in here to make sure that the maturation is happening as we want it to. Every cask has to stay for 3 years at least, but it could be 4 or 5 or 10 or 15. You never know until you taste the cask and find out when it hits that perfect balance.
Welcome back. So that was a grand tour of the process from field.
A lot of information.
From field to bottle. And I think this is to us, I think one of the questions that always comes up, and maybe it wasn't answered in this video, is that when we started out 15 years ago, it was from this farm. It wasn't quite single estate yet, but we've been building that up in the first years of our time as a distillery. And where we came from, it wasn't from being whiskey experts or having any experience from Scotland or anywhere else in distilling or whiskey making. It was from this idea of bringing something from our fields into a bottle. I mean, in our generation, I studied political science. You're an engineer, Andreas, and we didn't have that know-how of how to do it. So we just stumble across many of these ways of doing it. The equipment you saw, the malt house we designed, the way of working field to bottle, the way of putting Beachwood smoke that we're going to talk about in a moment into our whiskies. All of those things are things we kind of stumble across and then got smarter about why is this working as it is. So it's like when you start something, making whiskey in Denmark, in a place where you're not used to making whiskey, you don't have the luxury of just following something that's already been defined. So I think for us as a farm distillery, a single estate distillery, doing everything from field to bottle has been the way for us to do all these small experiments and just figure out what could a Danish whiskey be. And we had the first whiskey in our glass now, and I think that's, for us at least, something that really describes, I think, the vantage point or like the core of the flavor of being at this farm. This is like smelling the barn at the right time, at the right moment, in some afternoon with the sun shining in. It's beautiful for us because this reminds us of where we are. And I hope that shines through in basically every single whiskey. So this is our core expression, that bottle. So we started there, and we're gonna move on from there to the next whiskey. So let's get that one in our glass.
Yeah. Let's put Thy to the side. Mm-hmm. If you have more glasses, leave it in. We're going to return to it a bit later, perhaps. But let's get the second sample in the glass to compare.
Okay, so the second whiskey is going to be Bøg. Bøg means beechwood or beech tree in Danish. And the name is, for this whiskey, is named after the smoke that's been used here. So it's Odyssey barley, and it's been malted as a beechwood smoked malt, 90% of that. 10% of it is pale malt, so non-smoked malts. The cask is solely Oloroso cask, and it's been bottled at 50% ABV. So along with this whiskey, we're going to try out beechwood smoked malt as well. Let's try the whiskey first, but we'll get to that. So let's get back to the room. Thank you so much, Ellen.
Okay, so here it is. Bøg. Now, compared to the single malt Thy that we just had, the main differences that we're going to look into now is the addition of our beechwood smoke compared to the other one, but also a maturation only on Oloroso sherry casks. So whereas the first one was a mixture of Oloroso sherry cask, PX sherry cask, and bourbon cask, and this is a in some way more simple whiskey because it's Oloroso only and it's almost only beechwood smoked malts. But then you get your nose to it, and you get this very, very complex impression. And many of you who never had our beechwood smoked before would be surprised on what this smoke is and how it comes to mind. It's very, very different than smoked whiskies that you'd be used to. Scottish peated whiskey, for example. But you get this nice dried fruit, wine impression aromas, especially in your nose, from the Oloroso sherry casks. And then this barbecue-y, meaty smoke as well from the smoke. Let's taste it.
Let's try it out. And what a beautiful texture, right? This oiliness that you get in this whiskey.
Yeah, definitely.
And you feel the fruitiness in the whiskey is definitely that Oloroso dried fruit that you just described, Andreas. But when you get your palate to it, I think what you find all the more like appley, fresh fruits, like the grains that are still in here. It's definitely like we know the whiskey, of course, because we follow it all the way from new make to whiskey and have a lot of it in our warehouse. So a lot of this fruitiness is actually straight in there from the new make. It's just really interacting super well with its dried fruitiness from the Oloroso casks.
So the smoke in here is very different from what many other distilleries would use. This is beechwood. So beechwood is the Danish national tree. Whenever we started making whiskey, it just seemed natural for us that we shouldn't be pursuing the Scottish peat for our smoke, for our whiskey. We should be looking into our local area, into our local traditions in Denmark. And we are in Thy, in the very suburban part of Denmark. We're very, very close to the North Sea coastline. 5 kilometers from here is the North Sea coastline at Vesterhavet. And in every small village along the coastline, not anymore in everyone, but back in days it was, and still there are many, there are smokehouses, smoking the fish that the fishermen came in. And in Denmark we've always been using beechwood for smoking our fish. So it seemed natural for us to use the beechwood. And beechwood, I think, has a fantastic ability to integrate with the sherry cask to form this. Many of you maybe found a bit of a different nose, and it comes from the beechwood and the Oloroso sherry. Ellen, you put on images or video of the smoking process. Yeah. So when we want to add smoke to our whiskey, it all comes from the malt. So when the malt is in the drums, it's growing, it's germinating. Just before drying the malts in the kiln, we would turn on a fire in our big fireplace. You see in the beautiful images here, and the smoke is then drawn out into the drums and meets the wet green malt, the wet germinating grain. And then all these smoky flavors attaches to the grain. You can find the beechwood smoked malts already now in the small bag that you had. Let's taste it while we look at the smoke.
Thanks.
Beechwood smoked malt.
Yeah. So try to smell this as well. It's really aromatic from the smoking process. Like not overwhelming, but this rich smokiness that you know from Danish, fish, like you said, Andreas, or even bacon or ham or sausages or
a fireplace or campfire.
Yeah.
It's all the same. It's all beechwood smoke. And then let's get back to the whiskey to see if we can find some of them. What you will often find in a single malt of us is some element of this beechwood smoke that has really become a signature of ours, either as the Bøg whiskey that we are enjoying right now, or a signature smoked single malt, but even in Thy, the first dram we had, there were this tiny hint of smoke there, just to give some umami, or some mouthfulness, or some texture, some increasing the palate. You as a master distiller, whiskey maker, work a lot with that.
Definitely so. It's just that it's all those things. It adds fruitiness, it adds texture, like oiliness, It adds depth in flavor, and what you feel now with this Beachwood smoked whiskey is that it's really warming your throat. Like it's going a little bit deeper in flavor than you would normally expect from a non-smoked whiskey. So even using just a bit of it, you probably had that small warming sensation that I think I described in the beginning as well for the first whiskey. That's really something that's coming in there from the smoke, and it's delicious in even small amounts. And that's, I guess, how we use it in the Danish cuisine as well. It doesn't have to be statement smoky. It could be just the touch, like putting your steak on the barbecue, and it becomes just more delicious just from that process. So something like that. That's how we use the smoke.
I'm just looking at the comments, Jakob, and there's a few questions about the age of this whiskey. It's technically a no-age statement whiskey, but could you elaborate a bit on the cask composition and the age?
Yeah, I'd love to. So first point is that on every single bottle that we have, even if it's not age statement or telling you straightforward what is the age of the whiskey, there's got to be this QR code. I'm not sure you can see it here online, but if you find a bottle, it's going to be here. If you scan that with your phone, you'll get to our website where there's, for that exact bottle, is every single information you want of every single cask that's in this whiskey. You'll find nerdish details about fermentation times and stuff like that, but also just the more simple stuff of composition of the whiskey. So in this whiskey, and basically everything that we are tasting tonight, the age is casks that are around 4, 5, 6 years old. Most of them maybe 4 to 5. So that's what we are tasting now. It doesn't mean that every single cask in our warehouse is going to be bottled around that age, but this is where we find that some of these combinations of new make and especially sherry casks are starting to work really well and have that balance of things that we like, where you still feel the grain and the new make character and the smoke and everything that's happening in the whiskey, but you get that nice fruity touch or whatever you're looking for in the casks.
I'm just going to pop in a few more questions as we're speaking. Smoked ham with a honey crust is a flavor note. That's nice.
I love that traditional Danish dish.
Some answers on, or some questions on the smoke of the malt and the ppm of our Beachwood smoked malts. So when we're smoking, it's quite a long process. It's actually quite a difficult process to control. The smoking process in itself is 12 hours typically, but it could go even longer, 14, 16 hours of smoking, just to get the high intensity that we have in this one. And even though you might have, when you're nosing the beer and you feel that you've had way more smoky whiskies, this is actually quite high in smoke intensity. The smoky aromas are just very, very different from peated malt that you're used to. So we had analysis of this saying that intensities like this could be in the area of 60, 80, maybe even up to 100 ppm, but of Beachwood smoke. And that's very different from what you'd expect from a heavily peated octomalt peated whiskey or something like that.
And let's say for this whiskey, to try to kind of place that one, I mean, this is not the 80 ppm version, it's less, and that's intended. But I would still say we are some way, good way above 20 or 30 ppm maybe. But like Andreas is saying, it really doesn't feel like, you know, you're comparing comparable things. It's a bit like apples and pears, because the smoke comes out differently. You don't have those like medicinal, saline, like iodine flavors that you get in peat that are just so distinct and really filling your palate. The Beachwood smoke, I think you coined it very well, Andreas. It's just mixing and really it's integrating into the sherry casks and this whiskey. So you just feel it as one thing. So it comes out differently. So even though you feel the warmth in the smoke, it will always feel probably less distinctly smoky than a peated whiskey per se.
Let's have just one more question before moving on to the next one. It's a guy called myself. It's not me, who asked, from probably inspired from your tour, why are we lowering the ABV to 63.5 rather than keeping the higher ABV after distilling?
Yeah. I mean, good question. I think this is, for us, it's more or less just learning by doing. This is what we have been doing, and when you think it's working well, why change it? That said, we do actually experiment quite a bit with going a little bit lower sometimes, because the alcohol volume will interact differently. So if you have a high volume, it's going to extract more oaky flavors from the wood. If you have lower, it's going to be a little bit less. If you keep them very high, on the other hand, like keeping it at 79, 80%, like it comes from the still, you're going to extract very heavily from the cask. And that's not necessarily what you want. If you also want your whiskey to be other things than oak or very balanced towards the malt, then you don't necessarily want a super heavy extract of oaky flavors. So I think the industry standard is basically 63.5. So this is what you'll find in most places. And it's also working very well here. And we are normally experimenting more, going a little bit lower than going up from this place.
Fantastic. Good. So that was Bø. The 2025 edition, actually, lovely dram.
It is a lovely dram, and it is like if you were on for last year's online tasting, you had the 2024 edition, and this is the new one. And it's probably a little bit smokier, a little bit like deep, rich, fruity, but it's still the same product, the same story. And I think for us, this has always been, for a very long time, one of the really signatory bottles from us. The expression that probably no one else has done or is working on like we are.
We hope you like it.
Yeah.
So, let's get a bit more geeky. Let's get a bit more nerdy on the Beachwood.
Yeah.
Let's try to elaborate a bit about it.
Let's do that.
Time to sample number 3.
Yeah.
So next up is a limited edition, a bottling that we did earlier this spring. It's a double cask bottling called Cask 951 plus 409. It's made from Odyssey barley, just like you've been having for the last 3. It's made purely on Beachwood smoked malt, and now in a mixture of casks, so Oloroso, bourbon, and PX sherry. It's been aged for a minimum of 4 years, and it's bottled at a slightly higher ABV, 51.5% by volume.
Sure. Okay. So I've got this in my glass already, and Des is doing it now. Yeah, so this is a limited edition. It's not a single cask, but a double cask. So we get impressions from not only Oloroso sherry, like on the core expressions we had just before. This time we have influence from both PX and Oloroso, like those two types of sherry, the sweeter one and the more nutty, fruity one, and bourbon casks. Because the origin of this whiskey is 2 casks. So one was an Oloroso quarter cask, aged for that almost 5 years, and the other one was a PX cask that was recast into a bourbon cask later, simply just because the PX sherry cask, the sweet sherry, the cask broke, it was leaking. So we had to find a new vessel for it, and that was a bourbon cask. They were actually filled on the same date, from the same batch even, in the distillery. And by coincidence, I would say, they met again almost 5 years later to be this whiskey. So let's just try to nose it and drink it, and we'll talk about the whiskey. Beautiful, rich texture, very fully matured here. So the casks, they fill a lot more of the palate. The smokiness is probably the same, almost as the Bø you had just before, but it feels maybe a little bit less smoky here, or you actually feel it very integrated or in the background, because you get so much more sweetness, like rich vanilla from that bourbon cask, some warm oak spiciness in there as well. And on top of that, you get this very almost sugary, brown sugary sweetness from the PX sherry cask that was, the original cask for one of those two. And then this Oloroso marmalade sweetness from this slightly smaller quarter cask. That's a smaller size of cask that what we would use for the Bø whiskey. That's hogsheads of 250 liters, so this one is half that size, so you get more intensity. And the mix of all those things become this rich, spicy, warm vanilla marmalade thing. There's a lot of texture. But the smoke is still there, and it's beautifully like integrating into the whiskey. In the nose, it's close, it's lying there close to like the more oaky flavors. And in the flavor, it's the oiliness and the texture again. And then this warming sensation in your throat. So there's no doubt that you feel the smokiness here, but it becomes something different when you age it on cask with more intensity.
It's definitely a broader flavor.
Yeah,
I think, especially in the taste in the mouth. From these three different types of casks.
And what you can try to do with this whiskey, and I think you could do it with the Bø before as well, is when you add 3 drops of water with this pipette, that's all you need. What you're doing now is breaking up the oils. So especially when you feel that kind of like oaky texture for the whiskey, because you have like new oak or bourbon cask in there, it will often break that up a bit, make it a bit more mellow and soft. And the Oloroso cask before, for the Bø, it becomes a little bit less like really rich, deep fruity, and a little bit more light fruity. Yeah. So it's going to change the whiskey a bit. So try it out with all of these whiskeys and see how you like them better. I think even here, like the spiciness comes out a little bit more distinct, and the smoke is back, I think. And again, I think you feel the slightly lighter touch of the like vanilla oak texture, and the spices are out a bit more distinct again. It's beautiful either way. And I think this is one of the things that when we are working with our whiskies, like some casks will fit really well into the core expressions, and others will be decided for to be this kind of like a single cask bottling or limited edition. And I think we actually prepared one more video here that talks a little bit about how this whiskey came into place in the warehouse. So maybe Ellen, if you can put up that video again, let's watch it.
So we're back in the warehouse. One of my job descriptions is to act as master blender, master distiller for our whiskey. Meaning I have to decide which casks are going to be bottled as a product. So once in a while, we'll walk around the warehouse and do samples of every single cask. All you need is a hose and a hammer and a bucket. And we'll bring back something like this. A cask sample from every single cask. Bring it back to the warehouse, do a tasting. It could be 100 bottles at once, and make an evaluation of which of these casks would fit into the products we want to make. It could be something like this Beachwood smoked Bø that you just tried, or the bottle of single malt. So every single of these samples would get their evaluation, and some of them would be marked for fitting really well into this kind of product. But once in a while, we'll stumble across that bottle that just, does something really, really special. Like this one, cask 409. And the whiskey we're trying now is a very good example of this. So what I wanted to try to do is just follow the whole process with you guys. So let's find this cask 409. It's right this way. Follow me. Right in here. Okay, so this is a row of 120-liter sherry casks of rather the same size. And cask 409 is here. It's marked, so it's empty because we bottled this one, obviously, because it's in your glass now. So this cask just turns out to be at around the age of 5, almost 5 years old. Very fruity and rich, meaty smoke on there. It's our Beachwood smoked new make that was filled on that originally. So it has this really, really nice fruity brown character. So this one was marked, and we took out a new sample this beginning of the spring to see if this was ready to bottle now. And it was really great. A lot of fruits in there, but maybe a little bit singular. So this sample went back to the tasting room, and we did a small evaluation and trying out a few things with it. So let's go back this way, because what we found out was if we take this whiskey and try to combine that with another cask. So it's not going to be a single cask, but a double cask bottling. Then suddenly something magic happens. What we found was a cask right in here. It's a bit narrow. There's 6 rows of casks up here, but we're safe here within this whole rack. So here's another one. Now this is a bourbon cask. It's 200 liters, so much bigger. And what you'd normally expect for this one is to have light, vanilla, fruity, slightly spicy flavors, but this has a history. Now, if you take a look up here, maybe on this cask, this one, you'll see this is a row of sherry casks. A little bit bigger, 250 liters. This is called PX. So before this became a bourbon cask, it was actually first filled to a PX cask. PX is a very sweet kind of sherry, adding raisins and deep, rich sweetness to the whiskey. Unfortunately, this one was dripping, so we had to change the cask. Some of it was lost, but there was still enough to fill this barrel, the bourbon barrel of whiskey. So this cask actually wasn't just a bourbon cask, it was something with a history, something that was a mix of PX and bourbon. And when we tried this out at the tasting room, we found out that adding maybe 25% of this one to this cask 409 just made some magic happen. We got more like creamy texture, more spices, even more meaty, smoky flavor, and richer sweetness as well. So what was just a really nice, really beautiful, but singular cask became something rich and beautiful.
Okay, so that was the story of this one whiskey, I guess.
And the tour in the warehouse.
Oh,
I just
yeah.
love wandering around the narrow channels of the racks.
It's more or less everybody's favorite job to do something in the warehouse. Like, could you go and do this 3 hours in the warehouse? That's the thing you want to hear when you get in here in the morning. But that's kind of how we work with it. So you can imagine that all those casks in there, that's around 1,300 casks, divided by, I say, like 40% bourbon casks, 50% like sherry casks, 10% new oak, and maybe a little bit less, and some experiments, you know, from on the side of all of that. So there's a lot to try out in different sizes, different recipes. So what we do is sometimes do like very, very broad samples of the warehouse, so lots and lots of bottles.
I did a picture of you last time. You did a serious warehouse tasting.
Oh, you brought that?
Here
That's
it is.
amazing.
Yeah, look at it.
So this is Matthias and me. You met Matthias just before. So we are sampling quite a bunch of casks here. This is only half of the room. There was another half looking the same. So yeah, quite beautiful picture actually. So that takes a bit of time, nosing every single cask. And when you do that, you select some of them for the quality you need for maybe a core expression bottle, so that those ones would be reserved. So in my big spreadsheet, they will have that cross saying, don't bottle it for something else. And then some of them are just doing something exceptional or going somewhere else than you expect. And some of them are just like all those experiments as well. So we kind of put down notes on like, where could this one go? Do we use it in one of the major bottlings we're doing, or do we actually build a whole whiskey around this? So you'll put down a few notes on that. And by that way, by sampling and just categorizing, you'll get this like carpet of patchwork almost of different information on where can we get this inspiration for our next whiskey, and we try to follow those ideas in the next sampling, the next one. So it's a structured way of working with 1,300 different barrels, but we do actually sample every single one to try out the qualities and what we could use this one for. Tough work, but somebody has to do it. That's the joke we always put. But it is work. It is doing, you know, and sampling maybe 100 casks some days. So it's not just sitting in your armchair and and enjoying a whiskey like tonight. This is probably more pleasant and more comfortable than what we're doing there, but it's very interesting to see how everything is developing.
Let's give this one a nose again.
Definitely. I really like this one for being this just rich, complex, full-bodied whiskey. There was one question if this is still available, I think, on our website.
So this bottle in particular we did for a festival in Denmark, Whisky Messen it's called, in the city of Kolding. We bought these few hundred bottles, and the rest was sold in our shop just behind us. It's sold out and has never been available on our website.
Yeah.
But some other stuff will come.
Sure. But we're working on these like limited editions, and it is our playground, Andreas, that we always want to keep trying to make those combinations that doesn't necessarily fit into our core expressions, but it's so wonderful. And this is a beautiful example of what you can do with matching just 2 different casks. So this micro blend that just really
we'll
brings
get back
the
to
together.
this idea of mixing two casks together later.
Yeah.
All right. Lots of questions coming in. We'll keep them for a while because we need one more whiskey in the glass, I think. Then we'll do. And for all the Danes, alle I danskere, der sidder derude, hvis I hellere vil stille spørgsmål på dansk, så gør jeg altså bare det. Vi kan sagtens læse dansk, selvom vi snakker engelsk i dag. Right?
Or do it in English.
Yeah. All is good. Let's get the next.
Sure. So then the 4th whiskey we are trying tonight is a cask sample. So it's not a finished whiskey yet. It's called PX on Oloroso, named by the casks that it's been matured in. The grain is Odyssey barley again, a modern variety of organic barley. Malts are 90% pale malt. There's 10% of our Beachwood smoked malt in there. And the casks are PX sherry, 60%, and Oloroso sherry, 40%. It's been aged for 4 years already, and the alcohol in the sample is 49.5%.
Exactly. And you might be confused now, because that sample was actually the last one in your set, probably. But we need to take it now anyway.
Yeah, sure.
We decided yesterday.
Let's get it in the glass.
Now, for this whiskey, we're going to park the Beachwood smoke a bit, not take away the smoke, and then get back to the pale malt, the malty, brighter, paler malt, no smoke, and then we're going to intensify the sherry casks with much more of the PX Pedro Jimenez, sweeter sherry casks in here.
Definitely.
Let's nose it. Yes.
You really feel that.
The PX casks are definitely there. Raisins, darker sugars, marmalade.
It almost feels like brown sugar, right?
Yeah.
Just in the nose, you can almost taste the sugar.
Let's see.
Beautiful.
Lots and lots of sweetness from the sherry casks.
Yeah.
And for this one, we've really let the casks play the main, or take the main stage here. Let the sherry intensity be a bit higher than we would allow in our core single malt. Let the PX sherry tell its tale, show the raisins, the dark sugars.
But you still feel that malt, though, right?
Definitely.
The base of malty grain, cereal character.
So this is actually not a finished whiskey. We just named it PX and Oloroso on the sample because that's how we feel about it. That's the main characters of this whiskey. But it's still in the cask. Yeah. It's what you call a vatted whiskey. So what we did was that we created a whiskey from a number of different casks, made a good composition, but we felt like it needed a bit more depth, a bit more sweetness. So we did a mixture, and then we returned it to a number of PX sherry casks, where it is right now in the warehouse, waiting to be bottled, maybe in half a year's time or something like that. Just to let the different casks find each other and add even more depth, even more sweetness to the whiskey.
Because I think you get this nice, the whole idea of this one is the nice, like you have the sweet, rich raisins like you get from PX Cask, but it's not only that. You have that marmalade Oloroso layer on top of your raisins and your brown sugar. Okay. And then there's this touch of like graininess and also slightly hint of like maybe a ripe apple, but just like fresher apples. So you have those layers of sweet and that touch of smoke. I do get it, like from the 10%, what you talked about, Andreas, that it's just putting this rich layer and warmth under the whiskey. That's exactly what it's doing right here. So it will be more mellow, more integrated, you know, more rounded, a little bit more perfect than it is right now. And you have this spice, you know, the spices from the sherry cask, the old oak spices that are breaking through the sweetness a bit and giving it balance and texture. So I think it's a rich composition again, but it's
we actually did a bottling like this 1 year ago. It had this brown color, same as on your label. We tend to use that color for these intense sherry casks, and we named it PX Oloroso, and it made it both to Germany, Holland, Sweden as well. It's widely available in the in Systembolaget in Sweden.
Yeah.
So if you're curious to find a whiskey with some of these flavors, but after the final maturation, you can actually find a bottle in Systembolaget or in some Dutch and German stores,
and maybe even
a Danish retailer. You might. We don't have any more left here, but
But it was really one of our favorite bottlings last year to do something different than the core expressions are doing, to get a bit more rich in the cask, like we just had from the third and this fourth dram tonight. It's sometimes nice to get that more sweetness and more richness.
Could you find me the bottle?
Yeah, I will.
And then actually also a bottle of core expressions like the single malt.
Yeah.
Because I think this highlights quite well the difference between the two types of bottlings that we do. The boxed single malts, the Thy and the Bøg.
Yeah.
And then the tubed limited editions that could be a very, very limited editions of 100 bottles. It could be a more widely available bottle as well.
Yeah. Should we just have a look at the bottle just to see? Colors are difficult in.
Yeah.
Right, but it's this beautiful. You see the rich color as well in the bottle here. It's what you get from that intenser sherry cask aging. So it looks like this golden straw and everything. Beautiful.
Last year's edition.
This is last year's edition, definitely. Yeah.
Okay. Do we have time for a few questions?
Yeah, let's do that, Andreas.
We do a few. Let's see. There's some questions on casks.
Yeah.
What other types of casks do you have other than PX Oloroso and bourbon that you keep talking about? What other types do you have available in the warehouse? And we do have some experiments, but it's not a lot. The main composition of our warehouse is these three or four types actually. It's the PX series, the Oloroso series, the bourbon casks, and of course New American Oak that we're going to get back to later.
Yeah.
But we don't have a lot of other extreme experiments on the cask side. We tend to be, on purpose, a bit conservative on our cask choices. We do a lot of variations on our grain, the methods of malting, what varieties of grain that we're using, and I feel that you cannot vary every pallet of or every handle on your process. So for the casks, we tend to be a bit conservative.
It's something like the change we're really trying to make as a distillery in this world of whiskey is basically about having the grains shine through in the whiskey. It doesn't mean there's nothing. I think when I did a count, it was maybe 6% of the warehouse is something different. And that probably means a lot of different things in smaller amounts. So they are definitely there, but it's not going to be the point of the whiskies you'll see from us that now it's a different cask and a different cask again and a different cask again. It's more now there's a different grain or different composition of grains. That's really going to be the story you'll find from us.
And then a quick question: can you please explain what PX means? And of course,
Definitely.
we just say PX.
Yeah, no, this is we've been working with this whiskey for too long. PX means Pedro Jimenez, and it's the name of a grape that are used in southern Spain. It creates a lot of sugars, and there's a wine, like a sherry wine, that's also named after this grape. That's called Pedro Jimenez Sherry, or PX for short. It's something you make with this grape. You sun dry it, so it's in the sun, and it's gonna take away the water in the grapes. So what you have left is very, very sugary, almost like raisins, but a bit before that stage. So the wine you are squeezing out of these grapes are gonna be almost like raisin syrup, sometimes more than 30% sugars. So definitely very sweet and very intense and rich in raisin flavor. And when you make the wines, often you have this grape juice, raisin juice, and you actually add alcohol, distilled alcohol from grapes to get the alcohol content up to 17-18%, and then you mature it in casks for shorter or very long times sometimes. And that's what a PX sherry is. So it's the sweetest kind of sherry you can find. Other sherries can be quite like dry in your mouth actually. It can be oxidized, or it can be very like white wine. So sherry is everything from super, super rich and sweet to something very, very, I would say, like very elegant and white wine-like. So sherry is many things, but we are using the sweeter ones, and PX is the sweetest one you can find.
I'll stay in the warehouse in terms of questions.
Yeah.
And there's a question on casks being refilled, and how long time do we wait until refilling the casks with new makes after the issues of casks drying?
Yeah, true. So it's probably not a bad idea to fill them quite quickly. We can't necessarily do that all the time, but this year after bottling Bø, for example, we have the cask from that, and we are filling them next week. So that's probably a couple of months, and that's fine. But we even still have some casks from last year, and that will still be fine filling them like that. I think it's only because we are in Denmark, where the temperatures are not that high, where the moisture is rather high, where our warehouse is almost like outside, so very high moistures in nighttime. So we don't get drying of casks where they just dry out and they basically fall apart at the end. And we also basically, if we keep them for longer times, we put in wines again, so they keep their moisture. We try to do that at least sometimes when we feel it's necessary. So you can definitely keep casks for some time. It doesn't have to be filled the day after, but it's not a bad idea if you have the chance.
Yeah. And then just one quick, Andrea asking, which German stores can I find the PX and Oloroso?
Yeah.
And I don't know. But on our website, we have a list of all of our German retailers. And so that's a good starting point to find your nearest retailer near you, Andrea. But Google is your friend as well. If you type in PX and Oloroso and Thy, and then you might find a web store who is interested in selling you a bottle.
Yeah, definitely so. I think it will pop up online as well.
Good. Do we have one final question? I'm looking at them now. Oh, another cask question. Aaron asks about Tokai. Have you ever considered using a version using the Hungarian Tokai casks? He's asking for.
So short answer is yes. Okay. We have whiskey on a Tokai cask. It's not ready yet though.
Looking forward to sample it though. It's been a while.
It's been a while.
Okay, let's move on. We need to get to our fifth sample, right?
Exactly.
Yes, good. So the next sample we're going to dive into is caramel malt. Caramel malt is made again from Odyssey barley. It's made from a composition of malts, which is pale malt, caramel malt, and Beachwood smoked malt, just a tiny hint of that, as you see, 2% just. Then it's made from pretty much the same cask compositions that we had again, PX sherry, Oloroso, and bourbon casks. It's been aged for a minimum of 4 years, and it has a tad higher ABV again, 54.5%. And
Yes.
with this, you need the caramel malt back.
Okay, so let's go back to the studio here. So I think even, let's try out the malts before we talk about the whiskey. I think this is a very good way to understand it. So just get a few kernels. Yeah.
I can't wait.
You can cheat. Like Andreas, you can cheat at home if you want to, no problem.
We won't notice.
So take a few kernels and just try to chew these. So, what you feel now is something much more roasted, much more caramel, much more coffee, maybe dark chocolate.
Dark chocolate, like real 90% bitter chocolate, really, really dark chocolate.
And the bitterness as well is definitely there.
Yeah.
Still the malty texture, maybe even feels more malty, a bit more sweet than the first one we tried. So the idea here is that in the malting process, at the end of germination, when we start kilning, normally what we would do is just dry the grains down gently. So low temperatures, keeping the sugars intact, keeping the enzymes intact. But with this one, we're going to increase temperatures quite steeply, up to 60, 65 degrees. And let it sit there for just a while, when it's still very moist. When you're at that spot, it's like you're brewing, when you saw the introduction in the video. That is like when we are mashing our malts. It's at the temperature, the enzymes will cut down sugars into fine fermentable sugars, so maltose, basically. So that's the chemistry that's happening. When you get maltose, when you get out a kernel at this point, because the structure of the kernel has been completely broken down into those fine sugars, if you squeeze the kernel, it's basically liquid sugar inside, if you fully caramelize it. So when you're at this stage, it's the precursor to make caramel. So normally what we do is dry it down gently from there, so it doesn't roast or change too much in flavor. And you have this very sweet caramel, and then at the end of kilning, at the very end when it's quite dry, we will raise temperatures up to the degree where we want that kind of roastiness in this. So this is a rather roasted caramel malt that you're chewing right now. Okay, so that's the technicalities. And you feel this is different. Now we're ready for the whiskey.
Okay, good. I'm ready.
So if you did it better than me, you've been warming this whiskey for quite a while now. 54.5%. You can definitely add your drops of water, but you can try it out as it is. Beautiful nose, isn't it? Like a lot of sherry marmalade texture here. And something burnt caramel, exactly what you would expect from the malt that you was just chewing. It's directly, even in the nose of the whiskey, you get it straight forward.
It's so intense.
Yeah?
Even more intense than the Pigs and Oloroso that we just had,
It is.
but the intensity is just different.
Yeah.
And I get a clear link from the malt that we just tasted. And then to the nose here.
So get this whiskey all around your palate, in your mouth. Beautiful and sweet, but it has that bitterness and roastedness as well. And all those things about chocolates and coffee, I really get that. I think this, and what you feel is that it's covering your mouth in oils. So this kind of caramel brings in more oily texture, again, than many other of the new makes we make, actually.
Yeah.
So you're getting this very juicy texture. Even though it's high alcohol, it's sweet and it's very drinkable.
It's very sweet.
It is. If you add those 2 drops of water, you'll get a little bit more mellow, lighter, fruity caramel expression that isn't as roasted and rich and deep. So how you like it is up to you. I think the herbs are coming out a bit stronger in this one.
I'd like to get some comments on this whiskey from you guys. Can you type in, because it's so intense. There's so many different flavors going on. Can you maybe type in some of the aromas that you find in here?
And maybe we could do it together, because we had this idea that sometimes we're talking about all these flavors in whiskeys, and what you can do sometimes to get better at it or just have fun is find something in your kitchen that actually reminds you of that whiskey, or the other way around. So we found a few things, Andreas, right? So let's try a few of them. So one is definitely marmalade. This is from Andreas's kitchen.
Yes, that's from my kitchen.
Definitely, we have this like raisins, sure, like from before. We found like coffee beans.
Yeah.
You know, that roasted coffee. Maybe not the acidity, but like the roastedness from that. A bit more grain than coffee, but something like that. I get that kind of burned, roasted flavor. What more? Something like, this is a traditional Danish one, cacao, like cocoa powder. So not sweet, I think, just this really dry, almost sharp, aromatic cocoa. Almost like cocoa nips or something like this.
Burnt creme brulee. You get as well?
Yeah. And something that really coins the nose for me. I had this, when we made this whiskey and we blended it, we're like, this is great, but what is that nose? Like, how do you describe that actually? That was probably the thing that took us longer than anything else. But what really made it for me was tea. Like this is maybe a little bit more aromatic. But find yourself a black tea, like a really black tea, or maybe a red tea, like rooibos tea, would be pretty close to what you're getting here, to describe that like herbal note that's coming in here. It's like dried herbs. And I think that's a beautiful thing in a whiskey, and something very unusual. And I think all of these things are bringing it a little bit more in the way you're describing a very good rum. But it's definitely a whiskey. It's from grains, and this is single malt, and this is like sherry cask. It's not what you get from there, but it's bridging something, you know, like of all those roasted flavors from maybe something like a good rum.
You need one aroma for the Dutch viewers.
We do, so I saved this one for last because it was actually, I think Thijs, one of our good friends from the Netherlands, he had this. It was the first time I heard about it, and they looked like this. And I think, I don't know if I pronounce it right, but I think it's called like stroopwafels. Mm-hmm. It's basically a waffle with dark caramel inside. And they're just super delicious. So every time I go to Netherlands now, I have to bring this home for my kids, because they will eat several packs of this in just one night if they get the chance. And I'll just do it now. And I really get this, because this is coining actually the mix of like graininess, but also roasted caramel.
Yeah.
And also the sugariness and sweetness in here. Of course, it's different from like a cake to a whiskey, but you get some of those feelings in the whiskey here. It's quite a pack that this whiskey is getting you. And to me, it becomes almost like a dessert, or even a dessert chocolate, like a filled chocolate, something like that.
There's a lot of aromas coming on here. Bergamot or violet. Stroopwafels, I agree. Darjeeling tea. Mm-hmm. Some tropical notes as well. Aniseed. Mm-hmm. Licorice.
Yeah.
A very particular Glendronach 1992 cask.
Okay.
Fantastic. Thank you, guys. Summer honey as well, definitely honey.
Like I agree with all of those, from bergamot to honey, and it's this spectre of, you know, and I think a good way to describe it. I'll just show you this thing we did for last time we were here.
Yeah.
Because the way we are trying to describe our whiskies, it's very hard to coin every single whiskey in one description. So I'll just do it like this, I think. Hi. When we bottle our whiskies, we have 7 different colors that we are using for our whiskies. And now we are in this orange square. And those will kind of like relate you to like, where are you? Are you in this very malty, defined, maybe caramel malt, something in this direction? Are you in like more like lighter bourbon cask up here? So that's gonna give you a hint of what kind of whiskey is this. And the one we're trying right now is called caramel malt. It looks like this. It's orange, so it fits down here. So that's a guide to you. So if you like this one, maybe a bit more experimental, maybe a bit more rum, maybe doing something very different from single malts out there in terms of malting, then maybe that's the color you want to look for.
Yes, let's get this back into my kitchen.
We will. Sure.
Fantastic.
So Andreas, maybe, well, I'll take this away. Let's move on, and maybe you can talk about a little bit about our festival. I think we need to do that.
Yeah, we'll take a small break from nosing while you enjoy this intense whiskey. I just wanted to tell a bit about our upcoming festival. Now that you are here, we took the liberty of including a small flyer into your tasting kit, talking a bit about our whiskey festival. For years we've been dreaming about creating a festival here in Thy at our farm, in our farmyard, in the mid of summer, where we could invite you and all of our best friends from the industry to do a one-day whiskey festival where we can focus on the people creating the whiskey and how this whiskey is created, rather than looking that much at the brand, and look at the people instead and the raw materials of the whiskey. So last year we had the premiere day, and it was a fantastic day, and we're hosting it again this year. So on the 14th of June, we will be gathering all who wants in the farmyard. And as you look at the back, we have quite a bit of friends who's joining in. We have 5 different Danish distilleries joining. We have Norwegian, Aurora is joining, Tirempeli from Finland is joining, Ven from Sweden, Hendriksen from Germany is joining, Fielden Whiskey, our co-grain geeks of England is joining, Elixir Distillers is going to bring in a new selection of their indie bottlings. SNWS is joining in, and a few breweries as well, a few wineries, just to have a good time together and to share our passion for the products that we do in a whole day event. Ellen, could you bring up the program just to show a bit on? So that's it looks complex, and it is, but it's just basically the festival is centered around these taste sessions. We'll be hosting 4 different taste sessions in 4 different rooms. Where you'll be able to dive into some of the products. We'll be doing a vertical tasting of 3 different Danish distilleries, 2 times of that. We'll be hosting a co-tasting between Fielden Whiskey and the Danish grain guru Anders Born, who will be doing a joint tasting on ancient grains. Aurora will be serving their whiskey. Ven will be serving their whiskey. We will be going to the nearby burial ground for a smoky whiskey on Tobakshu, the burial ground. We'll be hosting warehouse tastings from morning till evening, and then in evening we'll be gathering around the campfire in the farmyard, or to relax and share thoughts and some very special drams.
And just during the day, maybe we can get back to the studio here, Ellen. I think just during the day, a lot of things are happening here. There's also like alcohol-free tastings, but also just you can sit here, you get something to eat, get a beer, just have a chat when you don't feel like a tasting, and then you book in the experiences you want. So this is our perfect view of a great day of just experiencing nice flavors, meeting nice people, and just sharing a really good moment together. That's what whiskey is all about, isn't it?
So we hope that many of you will join us. We still have a few tickets left for the festival, and we always love international guests here. I booked a shuttle and made arrangement with the local hotel, so everything is taken care of. You can even bring your own camper van here or the tent, and we'll find you a spot on the grass. Oh yeah, you're right, Jacob. We actually decided to do a lottery.
We did.
A raffle. So today we will be raffling. How much? What did you write?
So
4 times 2 tickets. I forgot.
Exactly. Like you always want to bring a friend to a festival.
Yes.
So for every bottle sold tonight, if you're buying something from our web shop, you'll have 1 ticket for the lottery of winning 2 tickets for the festival. So that's going to include the entrance. So any experiences you want to do during the day is something you have to get on top of that. But there's a lot of things included in the ticket already. So we're gonna do that and just contact the winners. If not tomorrow, then at least Monday at latest.
Good. Whiskey Festival.
Yeah.
Good. What's up next?
We're on for the next whiskey, Andreas.
Let's do that.
Yeah. So let's get it up, Ellen.
Spelt rye.
Okay. So the sixth whiskey, the second last one tonight, is called Spelt Rye. It's made from malted rye, that's 60%, malted spelt, that is 10%, and malted barley, 30%. The cask is entirely new oak quarter casks, and the alcohol on this bottle, or the whiskey we're tasting, is 48.5%, and this is one of our core expressions.
Now, we've been tasting single malts all the way until now.
Yeah.
Odyssey barley, with and without Beachwood smoke, on sherry casks, on bourbon casks, and then the caramel malt, just to make it very intense. Mm-hmm. Now we're changing the scenes. Now we're letting our rye take the stage.
Yeah.
Together with Spelt, the old wheat. And in the nose, you sense immediately that this is a completely different whiskey.
It is.
It's much fresher. There's still sweetness, vanilla, honey, vanilla from the new casks.
Yeah.
Some citrusy, much fresher than the darker flavors that we just came from.
Yeah. And what
And
I
then
think
some
is
spices as well,
Yeah.
from peppers of the rye and oaky spices as well from the cask again.
and what I'm doing this always, like when I start drinking this whiskey, you can try it out as it is, but I really, really love my 3 drops of water in this one. Because it's just changing the mouthfeel from, a little bit intense, caramelly, spicy to something very like toffee, soft, and the spices and the floral aromas like heather blossoms are really getting out there a little bit better after these 3 drops. So this is how I really enjoy it better. Beautiful. You feel it in the nose immediately. It's amazing getting back from this like caramelly, like more is more whiskey, all that intensity and flavor to this, right?
I mean, normally we'd always serve this whiskey as the first one or the second one. But I really like the way that we've been going through single malts. We've done the smoke. We've done the intense sherry casks. And now the complexity that rye brings in.
Yeah.
And this is not the cask dram, and this is not the maltster's dram. This is the farmer's dram. I mean, it's made from rye that are and the Danish of Danish grains. We Danes, we love rye. We eat rye bread every day. And rye is a fantastic crop for organic farming. We use a quite intense organic crop rotation to keep our soils healthy. And rye is just an inevitable part of that.
Yeah.
And then rye packs all of these spices that you sense in this one.
Yeah. And I think, Andreas, I think this is like when we decided that this would be part of our core expressions. Like there's 2 single malts, the Beachwood smoke one and the Thy, the first one, just the elegant fruity one. And then this spicy rye whiskey, very bready, very grain forward in there. And traditionally you would think, oh, but that's 2 different styles of whiskey, or that's something else. But I think looking at this from our perspective as a farm distillery, I think this is all part of that focusing on the grains. Like, why do you make whiskey only out of barley? Like, who decided that? Why is that better than whiskey out of rye or wheat or something completely different? And the idea about a whiskey like this one is that it doesn't bring any prejudice. We just wanted to build a great whiskey around all the grains that we are farming, because we are farmers. And it's so obvious that if you're in Denmark, the grains we are using here is rye as much as barley. It is wheat as much as anything else. So why not try to mix up the spelt and the rye and the barley to create a different kind of whiskey? And we really love this as much as any of the single malts we're doing. And I feel this kind of way of taking one step back because you are in Denmark and trying to think of this from a farmer's perspective or Danish perspective, and trying to maybe forget a little bit about what you learned about what is right or wrong, or what's the right way to do things, and then instead ask the question, but you're in Denmark, so how would somebody in Denmark make whiskey and make something great out of it? And this is a beautiful example of how you can really focus on the grains and create something that's, really different. It brings something different in. Like the malts just before, the caramel malt, it brings something completely different in, because we're focusing on the craft of malting, on the craft of farming, and that becomes the quality in the whiskey. I think, just to take one sidestep, we went to London 1 month ago, and we got something like this back home. It says World's Best Wheat Whiskey on the label here at the World Whiskies Awards. I think one of the biggest show for whiskey, I think, in the world, dedicated for whiskey only. And this is a great honor, of course, and it's nice to get the attention. But what I really do think that this is really great for as well, it's really showing that just because Scotch whiskey is maybe dominant in our part of the world, in Europe, in defining what is whiskey, it doesn't mean that's the only way to make super excellent whiskeys. And focusing on those grains will bring a whole field of flavors into your whiskey composition that is just defined out of that.
Because the funny thing is that what kind of whiskey that we made would be named the world's best whiskey?
Yeah.
Well, that's a whiskey made from Ølandshvede, an old heritage type of wheat, Spelt, an old heritage type of wheat, and Emmer, probably the oldest, most ancient grain in the world.
Yeah.
And it just makes sense, because of course it's those old types of grain, old types of wheat in this, that creates intense flavors that you cannot find elsewhere.
You know it from baking. Like I think in Denmark, if you look at the baking scene, really high quality bread will utilize those kind of old grains or something that's super, super flavorful, and not just the highly refined, wheat flour. So why shouldn't it be like this in whiskey? And I think one of the things that we've been working on, it's not in our tasting tonight, but it's not only old grains of wheat, it's also old grains of barley, and just experimenting with the varieties of grains. And that's just changing the whole quality. And we know from Anders Born, who's showing up at our festival, who's been part of multiplying some of these old grains for us, that there's actually been this structured work for the last 100 years to remove the flavor, to create one unified flavor of grains. Because if you're a big brewery or a big bakery and you want to make the same product all the time, exactly, a big distillery, you don't want those changes just because a new farmer dumps in a truckload of barley in your bin. You want to keep the same quality. So getting things the same becomes the quality parameter. But I think for someone like us, or if you think of it from a winemaker's perspective, if you only had one grape to work with, and that was it, one flavor, and you only had Pinot Noir, but you didn't have your Cabernet Sauvignon or Malbec grapes or anything else in the world, that would be a very, very narrow perspective on what wine is. So I think what we are doing humbly again here at the west coast of Denmark is actually doing ours to try to push that development a little bit and try to find some of those new flavors in grains and bring them back to the scene. And I think that's really what this is describing as well. And it's something that when we won the single estate distillery of the world last year, it was exactly what that was describing. That here in Denmark, maybe because we are from Denmark, maybe because we have to define what Danish is from the very beginning, from scratch, we are maybe actually stumbling across or finding some things that are creating completely new flavors and compositions in whiskey. And that becomes super interesting. And this is exactly what we are passionate about, Andreas. And I think the whiskey that we're just, isn't it? Like, I can't stop talking. And I think for the whiskey we're trying right now, sorry, I have to finish the argument here, but for the Spelt rye whiskey and this trophy, and the reason to bring it up here, is that those are very parallel. Because it's the same kind of cask maturation. It's actually the same mix of grains, but it's just those old wheats, the Spelt, including Ebba and Öland, that's been moved up in the ranks, so maybe 60% of that instead of 60% rye, which we have in this one. So it's this line of whiskies that this is representing, this core expression is doing. It's a way to try out what we're working with experimenting with grains. So that's the whole point here.
Jakob, we're actually planning to recreate this very particular heritage wheat whiskey.
True, because unfortunately, like good things rarely, nothing is good enough to not be bad for something. That's a very bad translation of the Danish proverb, right? But it's nice to win something like this. But of course, that whiskey is long sold out. So we have to do with this, which is in itself beautiful and excellent. But we want to create that recipe because, of course, when it's the world's best, let's do it again. But it's going to take some years. But we're doing this and we're offering this if you want to be part of this process, that you can join as part of our Cask Share program.
So there's actually been a few questions about our Cask Share program.
Yeah,
so maybe we could
let's just
elaborate a bit about it.
Let's explain it. So there's two ways you can get a cask here. One is the Cask Share program. So in this one you get a small share of a cask, 6 liters basically. That turns out to be 8 or 9 bottles of whiskey at the end. So in this case, we are filling a 120-liter heavily charred new oak cask with a new make made from these old heritage wheats. So the name will be heritage wheat. We're going to put it to the cask. It's actually been pre-maturing since February, but we're going to recask it to the right variation of cask in September when we meet at our Cask Owners Day. We have 2 of those every year. Then it has to mature this one for 4 years. So that's our expected bottling date, that in 2029 in fall sometime, you will actually have the finished whiskey. So you pay something like 4,500 Danish kroner to be part of this, to get your one share. That's around 600 euros. And then you can join those Cask Owner Days and we will invite you on the way. So you'll follow the whole process, and if you can't come to those Cask Owner Days, we'll keep the sample for you, you can pick it up, or we can send it to you. So that's the basic concept of this. And it's a mix of getting great whiskey, but also getting just the experience of maturation. And then
so that's the premiere of this summer's Cask Shares.
It is, and it was just released.
Heritage Sweet.
Yeah, Heritage
and
Sweet.
And then one more cask, right?
One more cask, and I thought maybe, do you have the camera?
I do.
Yeah, so if you want to bring the camera, the cask is over here. And I'm just gonna talk about it while Andreas is changing cameras. Ellen, can you change the scene? Okay, yeah. So it's right over here. So we did this last year, we're gonna do it again, but in a different composition. We're working with these old grain varieties. I just told you about them just before. And the next thing we have up in the distillery is this old variety called Langelandsbyg. It's 100 years old. We brought it to life from basically a handful of grains that was sold by hand and then multiplied for a couple of years until you have enough to actually make a batch of whiskey. And this is not the first year we're doing it. So we harvested maybe 20 tons last year, and now we're malting it and we are distilling it. In a month's time we'll start. We're going to fill the new make of this beautiful old grain onto this 100 or 80-year-old, something like this, PX sherry cask. It's a sherry butt, so it's this original 500-liter size that you see in bodegas in southern Spain. They will be here in layers, and they keep winding them for all the time. You bottle just a part of the cask, and then you fill the cask again from the top layers of the rack, of the bodega. So this is a very old PX sherry cask. If you look at it closer, you will see that it's very old. The wood is very broken. The cooper had the niceness to just paint it black again. That preserves the wood a little bit better. And here, when you open the cask, it has this mix of very, almost like a vinegary, notes to the nose, but also this very sherry raisin juice aromas in there. So we know the heritage of this one is from a place called Bodega Delgado. So we know the origin. And it's rare to find that because normally casks like this, you will not get those directly from the bodega unless they close or they sell some. You will get recoopered casks. So this is quite unique, a little bit more expensive than normal casks. And we'll fill this again in September when we meet. This Langeland barley gives us a very oily, very grain-forward new make, and I think it's going to be just beautiful in combination with this very old wood and raisin sweet PX. So that's the other choice. So we always have those kind of two choices you can follow.
So Jakob, maybe I should just show on our website where to find more information about this. Can you take the camera?
Yeah, I'll do that. Sure. So that's the cask. So you have the choice of those two, and you can join the cask share program. And I think in just a moment, Andreas will be ready to show you a bit more how it's working.
If you're interested in knowing more about our cask share program, there were some questions about our private cask program and our shared cask program. Just head on to our website. This is our website. And then in here you can find more information about our festival, about the new release. I'm gonna taste it soon. And then in here we have information about our casks, yes. And here are the two different casks of this year. The 100-year-old PX sherry cask that you were just showing. Yeah. And then the remake of our heritage wheat whiskey.
Yeah.
And there were a few questions on a private cask program. And actually that's something new from us.
It is.
That we recreated our program for owning whole casks in our warehouse. If you're interested in being part of the entire journey from new make till finished whiskey, you can actually adopt some of our casks. And if you go to our website, click on private casks, you can find a list of available casks already selected for adoptions, casks that have been in the warehouse already for 1, 2, or even 3 years that can be adapted for final maturation. Or you can select your own new make and create your own whiskey. There's a lot of information going on our website about that.
And we just built this new portal or area on our website to describe everything really well. It's going to be there in Danish and in English. And the cask shares, meetings will be fixed for our cask owner days. If you have your own cask, it is a pretty good thing for a group of people or a club or whoever you are. You can find them from 40 liters and up, so that will bring you something from 60 plus bottles and much more if it's a bigger cask. So if you have your own, sorry, we just need to get back to the studio. Yeah. So, go in there, browse through, and we'll have this, like Andreas said, this list of casks you can adopt, so take over, that's already maturing, if you're a little bit impatient on your whiskey, or you can create your own thing, design it as you want, and just fill it with new make. With a little bit more patience, you'll get exactly the kind of recipe you want. Those are all options. So, any question, just contact us and we'll find the solution for you. That's how we normally do it.
Mm-hmm. Good. Do we have time for questions?
Let's just do a couple of those.
Questions.
We are spending our time well. Andreas.
There's some, let's see. There's some questions about the lottery for the festival tickets and questions on language on the festival. So the lottery is just for every bottle sold today on our web shop is a lottery ticket for the festival tickets. We will be speaking Danish at the festival and English. So if you're okay in English, then it's completely fine. The taste test is both in Danish and in English.
Yes.
And it's held here at the distillery in Thy, just outside this room.
Yeah. And I think if somebody's really more comfortable, just to get everything explained, at least from the beginning of the festival in German, somebody will be here who can speak German to you as well. But basically information will be in Danish and English. And you can see on our website again, when you book experiences, is it a Danish session or an English one? And I think for anyone, any questions about like accommodation, we've taken care of that, I hope, pretty well by letting you stay here with your camper or what you can bring. Or you can just take the bus, we arrange for that, to local hotels and guest houses and whatever you want to wherever you want to be. And any questions will lead you towards it, but there's a lot of information on the festival on our site.
Let's get a whiskey-specific question.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
Water. From where do we get the water and how does it influence the whiskey?
Yeah. So we have our own well. So we are supplying our whole farm, both like the 200 cattle in like milking cows in the stable, and our whiskey production and malt house is all from our own well. So we have our own clean groundwater reserve that we're using. And I think for how is it affecting the whiskey? I will never, like in our tours, we talk very little about the water because I think as Danes, we just think, clean water is something we can just take for granted, which is not basically something you can everywhere. But it is important in the process, of course, that you have your clean water. It's also important when we water down the whiskeys at the end, or when we water down the spirit before it goes to cask, that we are actually adding our groundwater. We will remove like calcium and soften the water a bit, so we don't change the mouthfeel too much on the whiskey. But you will have some like salts left from the water. So there is going to be something affecting the whiskey a little bit there. It's not our main focus, I think, because we just take it for granted that we do what we use what we have.
And then there's a question on these. Let's see here. Let's get this one here. Some question about these old types of grain and the lower yields. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean the answer is yes. That it's a lot lower yield. The grains are more expensive. So if you look at it from an economic perspective, don't do it. Like the answer will be quite simple. It's also the same with heritage barley. They yield less and they yield less alcohol at the end as well. So for any economic purpose or efficiency, it's not a really great idea. But it's the same thing you will find in wines. Some grape varieties give you super high yields. Some give you less yields. But they give you different qualities. And if you work with them well, you get excellent product. And this is our focus. It's the flavor. It doesn't mean all whiskies have to be made from ancient grains. That's not the point. But we would like to see more of that, differences in local varieties and all of that, because I think it's so exciting.
There's a lot of questions coming in, and we can go into fights between Danish rye and European rye distilleries on naming of rye compared to Canadian rye. We'll take that some other time. It's an interesting topic. But we'll take it some other time. Questions about the aging of our whiskey, the amount of casks going in. We have to pass on because we have to go on to the next whiskey.
We do.
So we'll have to leave a lot of questions behind.
We do. But I mean, maybe summing up a little bit of this is that we have actually started working a lot together, like in Nordic distilleries and also European rye distilleries for the same issue of naming rye whiskey. I mean, let's not go into it. We've started working together as Danish distilleries. I just brought this, we made this Danish whiskey manifesto trying to state some of the qualities that we are working on in Danish whiskey. All of the things we are describing about our whiskies and of course more, because we are 10 distilleries signing this. So there's a process going on of maturing, I think, the whole business of making whiskey in the Nordics and Denmark. And I think that's, we're doing things sometimes differently, but it's adding quality and hopefully exciting new flavors. And that's the whole point of doing all these things. And of course we want to call the whiskey rye as soon as we get that in place. Otherwise we'll have to work with calling it Spelt rye barley whiskey or something like that. We'll figure it out.
We need to taste the last whiskey.
We do.
Let's get next one on stage. Because the last and final whiskey that will be tasted once before, it's called 277 plus 175, 174. It's made, we're back in the single malt game. It's made from Odyssey barley. It's made from lightly Beachwood smoked malt and pale malt. It's matured on bourbon casks this time, and now for 6 years total. And it's 51% ABV.
Can we get back in? Andreas, I have been so excited about presenting this whiskey. To me, this is the dessert. This is maybe a little bit unobvious to end up with that bourbon cask aged, well, Beachwood smoke, but not that smoky whiskey. So why is this at the end of the tasting? Why is this the grand finale? But I really think it is. This is a mix of like a 6-year-old and a 7.5-year-old cask, so 6-year-old whiskey. And I think it makes a dessert for me because we run through all the sherry cask aging, even like new oak now, caramel malts, all of those really rich and spicy flavors. And now we are back to just like a fruit dessert. So for me, this is an excellent place to end up. It's even like a creamy, I think, even in the nose. You get this vanilla cream, a lot of like light fruit, maybe some like ripe bananas, pineapple, maybe like pickled pineapple, peaches. And then there's this spice, but it's very soft, like a white pepper or something, just a sprinkle of that to create that, it's just giving some intensity and depth. And the good question, like, but where's the Beachwood smoke? What's the smokiness in this one? But it's definitely there. It's just integrated. Like the vanilla is a little more rich and smoky. It's a little bit warmer. Like the white pepper is maybe also a little bit licoricey and also a little bit smoky texture to it as well. So let's just I love this nose of the whiskey. Let's try it out.
It's nice coming from those intense sherry casks, the very intense caramel malt, the fresher, spicy, and now just bright vanilla sweetness.
And super juicy, right? Mm-hmm. It's like just driving, like your spit is coming to your mouth, and it's just, it has some dry side to it from this like spiciness, but you have all of this creamy, fruity, like in Denmark we have this like frugtsalat. It's a dessert where you mix up like vanilla cream and all those pickled fruits and a bit of chocolate, and all of those things are in there. And I think in terms of composition, we're back like the third whiskey we tried, this double cask thing. Because this is the mix of a barrel, like a bourbon barrel that was a bit more than 6 years old. Beautiful, like the smoke was actually like there, like a mild, nice smoke to it. It had the vanilla, it was very light, beautiful cask. And then this quarter cask that's 7.5 years old, almost like going into like super fruity, like intense, vinegary, and all the like tropical fruits that are just like exploding in that cask. A little bit more spicy as well, like some of the peppers are from there. And mixing those two casks then makes it this perfectly balanced thing where those aromas of fruitiness and spiciness are just where they're supposed to be, along with this very mellow, beautiful, soft liquid. So for me, this, even compared to all the sherry casks here that you probably normally would put at the end of the whole thing, I feel this deserves to be the dessert of tonight. So I've been just so excited to get this whiskey out there.
There's been a few questions about the age of our whiskey. Is 4 year the final age of a two whiskey? Do you plan to age whiskey for longer? And I think that this one is a great answer to that question, actually. That a bourbon cask, we would need a bit more time.
Yeah.
This is 6 to 8 year old. These two casks.
Yeah.
And just brings out the oxidation of these casks just comes out so beautifully.
Yeah, and I think when I did the count, something like 40% of the warehouse is actually in bourbon cask. But it's not 40% of the whiskeys we bottle that is like that. And that is because you get those like oaky flavors out first, so tannins and like bitter compounds and oaky, like oak shavings and all of that. But in time, in maturation and oxidation in the cask, you get those tropical fruits and juicy, fruity things, along with your vanilla and that touch of spice. And it's just beautiful when it ends up being something like this. So there's something worth waiting for. The reason why we also bottle something that is 4, 5, 6 years, and probably I think that's a very nice age for many of the casks that we do have, is that it's at the point where you have a beautiful maturation, but you also still get a lot of that cask, new make flavor intact. And if it is a beautiful and soft and nice aromatic new make, that's actually a lovely place to bottle your whiskey as well. It doesn't mean one is better than the other. We're probably going to make quite old whiskeys as well as time goes by. So there's no prejudice. We're going to do it all, but it just takes time to do the old stuff.
Let's just take a moment and join this.
And this is something I can just, the moment it's gone from my glass, I'm going to pour a new one. And I like the way that, the intensity of that fruitiness and that vinegary touch, that's just like increasing like the flavors. It's like adding volume. Even though it's light aromas, it has intensity and perfume. Like it can stand beside every single one of the whiskeys tonight. Yeah. And I think that to me is a beautiful bourbon cask. So that's why I've been so excited about this, because it's not that often.
It's actually the first. It's actually. I'm just looking at the bottle right now.
Yeah.
It's actually the first time that we're bottling a light blue bourbon cask aged in our new bottles. It's beautiful. 200 bottles.
200
that's
bottles.
It?
That's it.
That's all you could spend.
Sorry about that. Yeah. It's because we needed something for this tasting, and every time we send out that many boxes, you have less bottles at the end. So that's the real reason why it's only 200 out of a barrel and an addition of part at quarter cask.
Yeah. So I will put this one bottle online once we finish this tasting in 10 minutes time, something like that. It's available only from our website. As I said before, we ship to Denmark, Sweden, Germany, Netherlands, France, Austria.
Even Spain now, I think, but I'm not sure.
Not from our website, no.
Are you sure?
Not
okay.
yet. Yes.
But soon to be.
Sorry for those Spanish people here.
No.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Beautiful.
My glass is already empty, and but I think I'll wait till after the show. But that's gonna be my final dram again.
Let's see if we can have just a single question to end up with. Let's see. There are comments that it's too bad we don't ship to Belgium. Yes. We have vanilla, pineapple flavors. Let's see if we can find a final question for you, Jakob.
Yeah.
There are questions about the pricing of the cask share program and the private casks. Go to our website and find all details. It's in the link, just as you enter our website.
I mean, just to repeat, basically for cask shares, it's something like 4,500 Danish kroner or 600 euros for probably something like 8 or 9 bottles at the end. You'll find that in the description. And private casks start from something like 16,000 Danish kroner. What is that in euros? About 2,200, something like this, and upwards. So that's the first payment, and when you bottle the whiskey, you have to pay rest of the bottling. It's a little bit cheaper to start out outside of Denmark because all the taxes has to be paid with the bottling at the end. But something around that, around 2,000 euros, a little bit more for starting out for a full cask, and something like 600 euros for shares.
Yeah. There are a lot of questions. I can't choose. I can't choose. So I think we'll have to end the questioning session here.
Cool.
Yeah.
So I think that was kind of it. We had all whiskeys in our glasses. I hope you enjoyed all of them and found your personal favorite, because that's also quite important. I don't think we'll do like a vote for which one is best, because you have the right to decide. If you want to, put it in the chat, scream it out there if there's a favorite of yours. Yeah. I think that's pretty cool. Otherwise, I think we need to...
but just to wrap up, I mean, it was a nice tasting, Jacob. I mean, we started up with the balanced single malt, the smoke intensity in the beginning. There were a lot of comments on the smoke.
Yeah.
The grain, and then ending up with this beautiful bourbon cask. It was a fun tasting. I had fun.
I had a lot of fun, and it had a nice. And I think this is exactly what. Like, comparing to another distillery, a lot of distilleries will have one new make and try it out in different casks, and that's also quite exciting. But in this one, you really tried something that is change of grain or smoke or composition, and that's bringing you something new. So I hope you enjoyed that way of looking at whiskey. And important dates, Andreas, we always have to remind.
Yes.
So one is definitely the festival. Do you have the flyer with you? So that's 14th June. So this is the next big thing. I hope everyone will come here. We are excited about it, so hope that you will be too. Next one is the Cask Owners Day, I guess, like all summer. I have to say we are open here. We're open all year. You can visit us every day, Monday to Friday, even some weekends. Sometimes there's a tour. You have to check the dates for that. Otherwise, we do drop-in tastings.
Yeah, we do tours in Danish, in English, and in German.
Yeah. And in summer, there's a lot of tours because we are in a popular vacation area for summer vacation. So we just have more activities there. In September, first weekend, Sunday the 7th of September, I think that's the date. We're going to have our next Cask Owners Day. So we're inviting at least 270 cask owners to come and try their cask shares and even more for their
and with casks. A part of the new casks, the very old PX Sherry casks, or the remake of the Heritage Suite.
Yes.
You get to be part of it as well. We'll be doing cask owners events in Germany as well this year, in Hamburg, in Mönchengladbach, and in Berlin.
Berlin and Hamburg.
Yes.
And then again, I think we're doing an online tasting again. We have this tradition of doing it twice every year. So one time is now in English, and if you have the guts for it, it's going to be in Danish for Christmas on the 29th of December.
Yeah,
so that's our Christmas
så alle I
tradition.
danskere, der sidder derude, så mødes vi altså igen den 29. december. Og det gør vi hvert år. Og sidste år, der var vi rigtig mange samlet. Jeg tror, vi bliver flere den 29. december næste år. Så hvis I har haft det godt i dag og er klar til at gøre det på dansk, så mødes vi altså den 29. december igen.
And I think one important fact about the tastings is that we have the box. But every time we do an online tasting like this, you will probably see some things that you've tried before, but we will change the theme for every single tasting. So it's a new set of samples, it's a new set of whiskies, new set of flavors.
Yeah. Good.
Amazing.
If you want to know more, follow us on Facebook or Instagram. Sign up for our newsletter on our website. I write the newsletters and I promise not to spam.
And the new bottle will be on our website just after we finish this.
I just need to push a few buttons on the computer.
So if it says sold out in there, it just means it's not there yet, and it will be available.
I'll hurry. Okay. Thank you so much, guys.
Let's finish up, and I can get another dram of this.
What's your final?
My glass is empty, but I'm gonna sniff the last glass. This was my favorite of tonight. Thank you so much for joining, everyone. We so much appreciate you taking your time.
Hope you had a good time.
Cheers.